Alright, so is it worth it to get the A56 over the S24? I want to go over the pros and cons for you guys that were requesting this. I personally really like the S24, so I'm going to kind of break it down for you guys and kind of show you, why I would lean more towards this phone. Alright, so, start off with the price. The S24 base model here is going to be around close to 400 bucks on Amazon, eBay. So the one benefit with the A56, and that is like open box or used refurbished marketplace, and the A56 you could find for brand new around 326. So you are going to be paying a little bit less. So I definitely understand that if you're on a tight budget, but there's a lot of benefits to just saving up that extra money and going with the S24 here. So one thing here is the size. So again, the S24, because it's smaller, is going to be a lot more comfortable to hold. The A56 is not uncomfortable to hold, but it's definitely a bigger phone. And you guys could see the designs here. They look really good. I don't think the A56 looks cheap at all for a mid-range phone. You have a matte finish versus the glossy finish, which again doesn't look bad. You don't really see smudges and stuff like that. And apparently Samsung is going to be going with the kind of camera ring design that the A56 has for the S26 series. So I guess this phone kind of has a really updated design, I guess. As far as build quality, they're both actually glass and metal. Now the difference is that the A56 is actually IP67 dust and water resistant, while the S24 is IP68. So it does have a better water resistant rating. And overall, that's pretty much it for the hardware. Like I said, they're pretty similar. The A56 does not feel cheap at all. So let's talk about the displays here. So both phones have a pretty good display, but the S24 is going to have a slightly better panel here. It's a dynamic LTPO display. It's an AMOLED 120 Hz HDR10 Plus, and it's 2600 nits peak brightness. It is a smaller panel at 6.2 inches. 90.9% screen to body ratio, so you guys can see some pretty big difference here. And then we also do have 1080p resolution at 416 for the PPI. Now the A56 is using the older Super AMOLED panel, but it still looks pretty good. It's 120 Hz and it's also HDR10 plus. It's 1900 nits peak brightness, so it's not as bright, and it's a bigger phone at 6.7 inches. And then you have 87.7% screen to body ratio, and that is 1080p 385 for the PPI. So the S24 definitely looks better for sure, but the A56 is not bad. It looks fine. The S24 is definitely going to be the more aesthetically pleasing panel. I think the colors also look a little bit better, a little bit more accurate as well. But besides that, the A56, it's smooth. The colors are fine on here. But again, it just doesn't look as good as this, S24 panel outside in direct sunlight. It does a pretty decent job, but it's nowhere near as visible. So I would say S24 has the better display, especially if you're somebody who's outdoors a lot. So the biggest difference between these two phones is going to be these chipsets. So you have the Snapdragon 8 Gen 3 on the S24, 128 gigs and 8 gigs of RAM. And then on the A56, we do have Samsung's 1580 chipset. And then we also do have 128 gigs. And I believe this version is also 8 gigs of RAM as well. They do have a 6 gig of RAM version, but I would avoid that. But yeah, you will see the difference from day-to-day performance. The S24 is consistently a lot smoother. Both phones will actually get a 6 or 7 year pledge, which is nice, so they'll have updates for a very long time. So I would say in general, the performance you'll see that it's kind of similar. The A56 is doing a pretty good job. That's why I said Samsung did a really good job with these chips this year. It's pretty much on par with a flagship chipset when it comes to general performance. But I would say the S24 is a little bit smoother when it comes to just being able to keep up with the animation consistency, especially when we're loading up a ton of apps and stuff like that. You'll just see less little animation hiccups and stuff on the S24 for sure. So let's go ahead and add that. So you guys can see it's doing a really good job. Okay. Yeah, it's not really slow at all in comparison to the S24. So if you're just a regular person, regular phone user, right? You're not doing anything crazy, editing, gaming, stuff like that. You might not need to spend that extra money. So you can see like that little hiccup there. But yeah, guys, you guys can see it's nowhere near slow, realistically. Okay. So I would say S24 is just a little bit quicker, but here's where you see like a gigantic performance gap here. So if we come into PUBG, all right. So the biggest difference is for anyone who is into gaming, guys, is you'll be playing at 120 frames versus the 60 frames, which the A56 is still smooth, but it just feels, you know, dramatically different. And you'll see this throughout pretty much any games, Genshin, Call of Duty, emulators, video editing. The render times would be like a lot quicker. So the S24, while it is, you know, a lot quicker than the A56, for like the general usage, you won't really feel too much of a difference. But I would say the biggest difference that you will feel with general usage is, I think, animation consistency is just a lot better. Now, also another thing with the software is that you have the full Galaxy AI experience on the S24, and you really don't have that on the A56. You have some of the features, right? So you do have object eraser, best face, and stuff like that. But as you guys can see, it's missing a lot of features. So the writing assist, interpretation, and this is stuff you may or may not care about, but it's just something to know because it doesn't have all the features. Now your essential, you know, features, your circle to search and your Gemini assistant is here on both of these phones. But yeah, so it's just something to note. And also when it comes to speed, the fingerprint sensor is going to be a little bit quicker as well on the S24 because it is an ultrasonic. The A56 does have an optical one and it works. It's a little bit slower. And it's something that you might not really notice if you've never used an ultrasonic one, but these ones you gotta kind of hold a little bit like that. With the ultrasonic ones, it's just a little bit quicker. It's like a little tap, basically. Let's test out these speakers and see which one sounds better. Yeah, so I would definitely give it to the S24. It does have the higher quality sounding speakers. It sounds a lot cleaner. Hi-hat sound a lot crispier. Yeah, it just sounds like the A56 speakers are not bad. It's not distorting. There's a decent amount of bass on both of these, but overall the S24 just has the better sounding speaker. I got the camera specs here. So the S24 has a triple camera setup, 50 megapixel standard, 10 megapixel telephoto with 3x optical. That'll get you up to 30 times max zoom, 12 megapixel ultra wide. We can shoot in 8K 24 or 30. And then we also have a 12 megapixel selfie that can also shoot in 4K 60. Now the A56 has a 50 megapixel standard, a 12 megapixel ultra wide, 5 megapixel macro camera. So you don't have any telephoto lens, so your zoom is going to be limited to 10 times, and that's basically digital zoom. And we have 4K 30 for the video, and the 12 megapixel selfie that also shoots in 4K 30. So in conclusion, the battery life on both of these is actually very good. So you're not sacrificing battery life if you go with the S24 because of just the overall chip efficiency, but there is a pretty big battery size difference. You have a 4,000 milliamp hour battery on the S24 versus the 5,000 milliamp hour battery. And there are some kind of weird kind of charging situation things going on here with the S24. So it's stuck at 25 watt charging. It does have wireless and reverse wireless charging. The A56 has 45 watt charging, so it actually does charge faster than the S24. It is a little bit noticeable, but this phone lacks any type of wireless charging. So, that is, basically it. So in conclusion, guys, I think since both phones get all day battery life, because that would have been like a big thing for the A56, the S24 is just a much better buy. I would just buy it in the used refurbished marketplace open box version for sure. It's just an overall faster phone, and I thought the cameras looked definitely a little bit better. And let me know what you guys think, because I think it's a pretty obvious choice which one you should get. So what do you guys think?